The universe will have its way. Too powerful to master.
Hey, I made it! You made it! Good morning, everyone. Greetings. Guten Tag, wherever you are. This is Catalyst Energies. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. My name is Dee. Oh my gosh, I totally messed up my own cadence. By the way, that's why you hear the phrase that's uttered at the beginning of any kind of program or any kind of channeling. It's I don't want to call it a trigger word, but it is a particular way of changing the consciousness of the speaker, right? It's an entry point into a system. So if you ever wondered about that, I mean, it's part of also just remembering your lines for any type of performance, but it also does allow for a dropping out of the consciousness, the more on the surface conceptual third house type of mindset, and allows in a different voice altogether. It's certainly yours, but it can be your higher self or something else. So, wow, that was quite a diversion. Things feel really different. The moon in Gemini is certainly having its impact on me at a personal level, right? So you may be feeling kind of scattered. So welcome back, everyone. Welcome if you're new to the channel. I hope that this is not your first impression, because it's a little out of sorts. But it's okay. We always kind of bring it back. And there's something incredibly raw and very powerful about the authentic nature of a live stream. There's no editing, right? You don't take anything back. You are just authentically yourself in the moment and just presenting that truth to the world. And I think there's something very valuable about that. So if I was trying to record this right now, I'd be going back over it and over, because I try not to edit any of my material. I try to really let it be a stream of consciousness. So I'm going to get out of studio mode here. I'm going to check in with the stream. We got some chat going. We were listening to the Flaming Lips earlier before we got on here. I love the long lead-in time. I missed you on the fellowship, Emily. Yeah. Oh, man, we had such a great time The fellowship, the Starseed fellowship that we had last night was a really great conversation. So that's for monthly subscribers. That is a Zoom call that we all have access to, and are able to participate in a conversation. I certainly have material that I present or I'm prepared to present, but I really just enjoyed the space that we all get to share, the space that we get to share ideas, to trade our questions and our musings, and really learn from each other and connect. And there's something so powerful about these two concepts being one and the same, but also distinctly different symbolic representations, just like Gemini and Pisces, which is where we had our first quarter moon in Gemini square to a sun in Pisces. So these are all themes I'm going to bring up today. I have a reading to share with you. We're going to go over the astrology of the first quarter moon and the transit of the moon through the rest of Gemini today. The moon will be moving into Cancer tomorrow. This is its home territory, or her home territory. Mercury is in Pisces now. And so the only limit to what we can imagine is our own imaginations at this point. So, but it's also very important that we understand the difference between the breath of spirit, or the mutable array of ideas and concepts, but the dual nature of Gemini and what it means to be fully immersed and surrender to surrender to basically what is, right? To fulfill and trust the fulfillment of the process, right? Pisces in 12th house is so difficult for so many people, because it often is associated, especially the 12th house, often associated with, isolation and endings that are very difficult to accept, and a lot of karmic buildup that it still needs to be wiped away or dealt with, or residual karma that keeps coming back in over and over. So it's not an easy position in general, especially for the sun, right? Because this is about our own individual sovereign voice, and to give it over to back to source, if you don't believe in or want to identify that part of yourself, can be very difficult. And this is where people get trapped in power. So man, we talked a lot about this actually last night. We talked a lot about Scorpio. We talked about the Pleiadian revival and the nodes and how they're connected with Scorpio. And the Astrology Summit for Embodying Your Star Wisdom is still happening. Today's the last day. And there's a lot of content that people are finding very valuable in those talks that are getting woven in, at least into that conversation. And I thought it was just so good. So, Emily says, I hated to miss it. I work late in an earlier time zone, so I was doing my fellowship. And the moment y'all were flowing, yeah, that I could see that. I bet it's why I was in flow so easily. Our collective was on fire. I really feel that. It's all tied together, isn't it? Not very much. So much that I can't read everything that you just said, Alex K., but I know most of those words. And for me to sit down and be like, Fust, that's the one word I don't know. Everything else I do know. 29 degrees of Pisces on my 12th house cusp, a lot of wrapping up karmically. And really it's about trusting that process. See, there's a reason I play this intro music. It's part of my own personal music taste, but there are themes embedded in it that are related to what I'm going to talk to, which is again about the duality, the code being one or the other, and what happens when that is when there's an error in the code, and then what it means to surrender to the power of the universe, right? In the morning of the Magicians, right? That's the name of that track. So there's a lot here to talk about, guys. So if you're interested in the Starseed Fellowship, you can subscribe through the link in the description box below to Subscribe Star. And yeah, let's move on, shall we? We're in such an interesting moment in time. We are at this, now we're officially in the second lunar quarter with a lunar cycle that started with a Pisces new moon, conjunct Jupiter, right? This is some big, expansive, karmic, all this karmic energy, like the swell of the ocean, and now it's becoming turbulent, especially with the Gemini moon, right? It's turbulence. And if you think about turbulence in the ocean, for instance, certainly what's going on in the water, or the earth underneath the water, underneath the surface at the bottom of the ocean, that moving as well can cause all kind of upheaval or turbulence. But really, I'm thinking about the turbulence of the air, right? Of the air or the wind, which is archetypally and astrologically has a lot to do with spirit, right? And consciousness, and thought, but spirit, and it will bring up and make make the surface of the water. It will sometimes do more than ripple. It'll make it very choppy. So if you are familiar with that, if you've been on boats or you have any experience being in the water, regardless if it's a canoe or a kayak, or you have like any kind of sailing experience, the choppiness often comes from the weather in terms of the air. And so this first quarter moon really feels like the mental and thought-oriented turbulence, communication, information, perception, the actual digital codes that are coming in, the signals that are coming in, how we're receiving them, how we're processing them. These are all Gemini. And when we talk about a moon in Gemini, we really are the medium of our conductivity, our own internal waters, the fluid within us, right? This is how our nervous system actually functions. They are channels in the nerve cells that are open as a result of certain elements being ionized and creating an electrical current. But there is fluid everywhere that conducts these electrical signals. And that's the moon for us. It's our internal water landscape, our sense of feeling, and how we interface in that feeling and in that spirit with the world around us. So there's been turbulence, right? And I think we're all feeling it at our own level. Some concepts that came up, or some things, just some words that came up last night a lot, were polarization, right? Such a Gemini theme. People feeling the tension between that polarization. There's a sense of inner battle, right? And truly, the battle is within each of us. It is going to shift and change in relation to our own resolution of this dialectic, or this duality, this Gemini, right? And the positive aspect of Gemini, not to give Gemini such a bad rap, and the Orion nature, is that this is how we grow. This is how our consciousness grows. This is how our capacity to perceive the world around us actually grows, and is a result of interacting, having the back and forth. This is what a conversation is, or communication in general, and the way that we move through the world, and the way that our nervous system functions to sense and perceive and interpret. That's also part of it, and that's a lot more of, as you move through the chart, the 3rd, 6th to the 9th house, where you get to understanding. But this is still all from a sense of the mind and knowledge versus wisdom. So Black Moon Lilith is involved. This is something that is a big theme as I'm looking at the astrology leading up to the full moon, as I'm starting to move into larger spans of time. There's going to be an equinox very soon. There'll be a special report and a reading sale for the equinox to solstice period, and Lilith is just such a huge theme. These are wounds that we absolutely have to acknowledge, whether we like it or not. And that's one of the main things about Lilith, is she will be heard and acknowledged, and she will put her foot down, even if it means that she is not part of whatever it is that she was like, no, I'm not into this. Now, we could unpack or deconstruct that story within certain contexts in terms of Lilith and Adam and Eve, and we're not going to do that here. That's something that we would say for the fellowship, like, what is the story about. We're talking about the astrology and the symbolic reference of Lilith. And she's a big part of the story because, again, the feminine is coming forward. The secrets are coming out. The deeper meaning of our life, our existence, why we're here, it's all surfacing, and it's all part of acknowledging where we've come from. Whether we like it or not, we have to acknowledge where we've come from, the choices we made, which is to we did come to a point of separation. At a soul level, we made that choice. We may have not made that choice societally or individually coming into form, but we definitely made a choice at some soul level to be part of this separation in order to experience the process of unification and what that entails, right? That is a certain level of mastery that we're really attempting to get to, because that's how you transcend the recycle loop, back into the matrix. But that requires surrender and trust and unconditional love. And if you will not allow yourself to access those spaces or concepts or feelings in your own self because of whatever reason, this is where you get caught in the net of power and Capricorn. And this is truly the nature of Satanism, honestly, without getting into into the feels about it. It's just pretty matter of fact. If you worship materialism, that's where it ends for you. But it doesn't really. You still have to go through the process of the 12th house. And it's been my understanding, I don't have any real proof of this. This is just from other documentaries and videos about certain people that were very embedded in the occult. Aleister Crowley, Anton LaVey, right? He was the head of the Church of Satan, the modern Church of Satan. These individuals, they still had to face their karma at the end of their life. And, this is why people have their life flash before their eyes at the end of their life. This is why people have these really intense experiences, because there's no getting away from yourself. And even if you worship materialism, your own death shows you that is even that materialism that you worship still has the process still has the final word. The process of nature still has the final word. So, the irony of wanting to live forever or to, create some sort of artificial housing for your consciousness. I mean, the hell is that you never can die. You just keep getting uploaded into the metaverse over and over. So lots to consider right now. But it's this type of mental this mental playground that can really add to the turbulence right now, when we're really finding so much of our identification, representation with Jupiter, and now with Mercury, in the realm of Pisces, where it's all possible because it's all the same. And it's all a matter of surrendering to the back to the beginning. And that also comes with an acceptance that there will be a beginning, right? That's the idea of Pisces as you come into the end of Pisces, which is where the sun now is coming into the third decan. Neptune has been here for a while, and even Jupiter now is making its way through the second decan of Pisces. And this is the realm of love and imagination and fantasy and art and love and compassion, right? It's about surrendering to what is, though. And so that also comes with its own bittersweet aspect, or a martyrdom aspect, where we surrender ourselves, something valuable of ourselves, right? And this is part of the Virgo archetype. So, wow, so much to talk about, and I can feel the turbulence in a good way, but it can also be very distracting. So, let's get the reading together, because I feel like that the imagery will really ground what's happening here. And I'm just emptying out some bots, you guys. Okay, so thank you for being here, guys. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. And let's get to it. I'll bring up the reading and we can start unpacking this. And so thank you for being here too. If you were, Barb in particular, if you were here, I know that we were chatting last night too. So, I mean, I'm here if people need it, right? And I'm going to be transmitting whether anybody's here or not, because that's just what's happening for me. So here is our reading. It's actually very interesting. It does suggest that we have everything we need. We're actually very much rooted and stabilized emotionally and energetically right now in being inspired by the muse, right? By having access to creative resourcefulness or any kind of inspiration. That is, but how we're going to use that is, I think, where the guidance on either side comes in. I think our biggest sticking point, as we can see here, we have Adsum reversed. This, the attention collectively is on the fact that I think that people are really feeling like there's no hope, or they've lost connection to that which their higher self, right, or the spirit, however you want to identify it. So when Adsum, or number 22, is reversed, there usually is a good indication that something there needs to be an effort to reconnect in some way, or to realize that we are never alone. And this is exactly, if we feel this way, this is exactly the time that we can create a space in order to remind ourselves, or to invite them back in. And we're the camel, when the camel shows up, that it is a harbinger of, like, you got a long journey ahead, but everything you need is embedded within your own self. And when we're talking about our spiritual journey and an esoteric concepts here, we are also talking about, that we have what we need spiritually and in our emotions to take this journey. So the thing that's kind of a bummer, but doesn't have to be, is that you have the Princess of Wands, you have the Ten of Discs upright. This is wealth. This is just like, this is all really like, very playful, very enthusiastic, very passionate. Also, an acknowledgement of all this material success and everything, all the fruits of our labor, right? All of our works coming to a sense of completion and security and knowing it, right? Mercury in Virgo is the 10 of discs. The 10 meaning that there is at least some sort of loop that is closing. But then you have Mercury in Taurus, the 5 of discs, which is worry, and it's up and it's reversed too. So, and this is connected to Adsum, right? The worry is connected to Adsum, but also to keep in mind that sometimes we worry about things that may happen because that's just the nature of worry and being caught in the future. But it also does say that the material security of the 4, which is power, right? In the tarot is power. The 4 of discs is definitely power. And again, we just talked about it. If you get stuck in the power and materialism, and you're not willing to offer yourself to the rest of the process, with your highest intentions as the well, I wouldn't say as the goal, but as your companion, then yeah, you're going to be worried when those resources are changing. And Uranus and Taurus is a big part of this. There's going to be connections between Venus and Mars with Uranus here in the next week or so as they're moving through Aquarius. But we may be worried, especially because we're just like, yeah, look at everything we've got. Like, we've really reached this point of, I wouldn't even say saturation as much as, yes, all of it has been for something. And I do feel like we are stabilized by a sense of inspiration. And with Mercury in Pisces, this is really favorable. But it does... there is a sense here that there's going to be loss, that we're afraid of loss. We're afraid of material change, material destruction. And because of everything that we have gathered so far that we are very attuned to right now. So let's pick this apart or unpack this one piece at a time. Oops. Here's our Princess of Wands. We've seen her so many times. Venus in the fire signs. So, she's at her best when she's upright like this, and, very playful, like I said, enthusiastic, courageous. This is the Earth or Venus in the fire sign. So she's representing all states of action, transformation, combustion and release, right? The spark of life, the potency, desire, all those Aries traits. It's all rolled up. And then the Sagittarian aspect of big picture, optimism, and meaning. So very playful here. She doesn't really have any water to ground her. She doesn't have any she's unaffected by deeper emotions. No water to really like give her that well of deep emotion or feeling, or even just investigation into the underlying mechanism. So the only thing that she really seems to be thirsty for is revenge. And I've been thinking about the concept of revenge a lot lately. So I'm still working through some ideas. So there may be, in terms of where it's at in the chart. The thirst for revenge, though, I think comes from Leo in some ways. So insatiable hunger for life, passionate, enthusiastic, beautiful, courageous. These are all great ways to acknowledge the symbolic meaning here of our Venus in the fire signs, or the Princess of Wands. So the causal factor, feeling pretty good, right? And then and really accepting the aspect of transformation and metamorphosis, right? Fire really does, regardless of the type of fire, there is an acknowledgement that there is, and I mean, fire is yes, it has a physical nature that we can see and that we can feel. And the after effects of a fire burning, we can smell, right? Our senses are involved. The material aspect of life is involved with fire, and vice versa. But it also does have to do with transformation, and I think that's the aspect about Venus in the fire signs, or the Princess of Wands in general, is that there is some sense of release of energy. This is what a fire actually represents. Yes, we see a fire and it has all these aspects, but what you're seeing is a release of energy as a result of a chemical reaction, right? And so no matter how you shake it, there's a release of energy in all of the fire signs. So there's action, there's potential behind the Princess of Wands, and she's going for it, right? She is like I said, she doesn't have a lot of deep emotion, and she's certainly not very thoughtful about it, because there's no air really either. She's just going for it, and in her feels, right? And so coming to this as well, the 10 of discs that we've seen many times, this is Mercury in the last decan of Virgo. This is where the full moon will be, my friends, just so we are clear with ourselves that now we're in the chute leading to the full moon, the culmination point, and it's going to be at 28 degrees Virgo. So, and that is the decan ruled by Mercury, ruled by this card. So I think that we're already feeling the saturation of what this means, and it's already starting to build, and I think it's already embedded in our heart space, right? In something that is the juncture between our energy and what's going on out there. And when I say out there, like what we're experiencing outside of ourselves, what's out there in the matrix reality. So, and that's going to change, right? Like our perception of that and our interpretation of that is changing as we are becoming aware of the fact that there are multiple versions of this that we can interface with, and the ones that don't stand the test of this evolutionary leap are not going to be as visible for much longer. But with this card, like I said, it has to do with a final resting place of manifestation, right? If you look at the Kabbalah, for as limiting as it is, and just like the tarot that's based on it, for as limiting as it is in terms of a esoteric map, the 10 is at the very bottom, and it's called Malkuth, right? This is related to Hebrew and Judaic mysticism, the Kabbalah, or the Tree of Life, right? Jewish mysticism, and the concept of the Kabbal is really based on the Kabbalah, and so. But it does represent like a coming to a resting place of manifestation, and the cycle kind of completing and starting over. So it's the point where the richest potentials truly unfold, because you've come to a point where you're ready to harvest. I mean, this is a lot about the harvest itself and the accumulation of all of the value and worth of the harvest and the completion of it. So we are here. We are here at this moment of the harvest ready to be initiated, right? We're at full maximum capacity and it's time to cut down the plant or whatever, right? Cut down the crop, however you want to do it, right? Separate the wheat from the chaff, the scythe of the Grim Reaper. And I'm not trying to be morose here. We better start. If we're uncomfortable with the concept of death, we better get comfortable. And I'm not suggesting that we have to accept limitation and pain and, that in terms of that. What I'm saying is that it's just part of the South Node in Scorpio, and it's part of this process right now. And the death aspect, I just feel like that we have to be prepared. Like I said, the full moon is going to be that moment where will we emotionally be able to gather ourselves at some sort of central point of willpower and integrity in the moment of some sort of crisis. And right now, I think that we are seeing, okay, this is what I have. This is where I'm at. Like, this is the completion of all of the labors that is sitting at the heart of things. Just basically resting, ready to be given over, ready to be harvested, ready to be, the next step is to move into the seventh house astrologically. So when we look at where we are energetically, this is where it starts to get interesting. So here is our muse, right? Number 15. This is, the standard idea of the muse is that aspect that creatively inspires one who is open to the flow of universal consciousness or transcendence, right? This is why Pisces people tend to be incredible empaths and mystical healers and artists, because they are in the creative flow in the Pisces way, where everything is everything else. Everything is nothing. And so giving oneself over to the stream of this consciousness or this field of consciousness, who talks about this a lot actually is David Lynch. I don't know if you have ever come across any of the talks he's given about transcendental meditation, and I have my own reservations about that movement in terms of it's an institution made up of humans and a leadership, but the practice of TM and the practice of meditation in general, I really like the way, this is where he creatively expanded. And so the more you meditate, the more expansive your consciousness gets, and the more capable you are of kind of going further out into the field in order to find inspiration, right? So this is the muse. We identify it as something outside of us, but it's not really. It just is a reflection of our ability to just dissolve into that space. And that happens in meditation. That happens in prayer. That happens when you're in the flow of your art and your imagination is open, right? What if you're daydreaming? This is a big part of it as well. And literally dreaming, like while you're asleep. So this is saying that I feel like our emotional and energetic core, and with the moon coming into Cancer, I feel like this is even more important, is in our access to this. And when Mercury coming into Pisces now, it's at 0 degrees Pisces right now, this is important to allow this space to be accessible to us, right? Resourcefulness, imagination, creativity, and any of these projects can get a lot of energy right now if we are tapping into more of our subconscious, more into our own root, where we're drawing our power from is our imagination. Mostly, that's what I see from here. Now, where the attention is on add some, but in its reversal. So you can lose, while there's a lot of energy in the lead up and in the emotional core of this reading. It's in where the attention actually is in the mind that is going to lead to feelings of worry, feelings of, or thoughts about what we could lose, or being really concerned about what could happen. Or also too, this is directly connected that if we don't kind of align ourselves with some measure of healing, or realize that our guides or our spirit or higher self, whoever and whatever you really align yourself with, what is that avatar, right? It's this is when we need them the most, and this is normally the time where people start to desert those all of those representations, right? That we lose sight of our purpose and our connection, and we start to feed that, and we start to actually widen the gap by continuing to reinforce that they're gone. And it's just because our mind becomes so I would say overwhelmed in some cases. It's just busy, and like I said, with the moon in Gemini, right? The turbulence of this type, these signals coming right into our fields, it can be very distracting. It could keep us feeling separated, right? And this separation is part of the experience of the human condition at this point, but it's not the end of the story. And this is what we learn through the course of the astrological chart, because if you get stuck in the third house in Gemini, I mean, yeah, then you become obsessed with knowledge in and of itself. And this is how you get a whole other brand of secret society people who are much more interested in the acquisition of knowledge in and of itself. So, and there's a positive aspect to this, don't get me wrong. So, and that's something that we can talk more about in the astrology, and then also in the fellowship, right? These are the types of subjects that we can, and then we do talk about, is getting into kind of the deeper aspects of some of these things. They haven't deserted us. We're not been deserted, but there is this sense that we are cut off, and we're not. Right? I think it's just that we're cutting ourselves off through our own mind. And in fact, it's going to reinforce the worry that we all are feeling right now on some level. Like everybody's feeling the squeeze at a resource level, which is what Taurus represents. We all are. And even if we've known that it was coming and that we are prepared in a myriad of ways, that doesn't mean that we're not still engaged with the information about it. You know, you'd have to be living in a cave off the grid in a way entirely not to even realize what's happening. So we're all being impacted in some way, and it's definitely in our minds, and it's like reinforcing this sense that we're disconnected, or there is no connection to our spirit, or we've lost sight of that connection, because it's all about the appointed time. It's all about the appointed time, right? Do we trust? Do we surrender to the idea that when the time is right, we all sit down at the table together and it's already set? If you can't wait and you're ready to just go to the buffet and like load up your plate and not even finish it because you're afraid that you may not have access to these things, or you don't want to wait, or you don't trust that people are going to show up to dinner, right? And you're like, maybe I'll just go feed myself. That's a choice. And this is exactly what the first quarter moon is symbolizing for us. So there's a material crisis with the Five of Discs no matter what. And there's a sense that we're worrying about what could happen and kind of getting ourselves focused on the future. And also, too, when this is reversed, it does suggest that there is actual fear and actual loss and actual failure and conditions that actually get worse, and unpredictable changes that are worse, right? Or destruction. I'm not suggesting that those aren't possibilities with this reading, but look at everything else around it, especially considering that we have acquired so much and we're like sitting with it in our hearts in a really, I think, very thoughtful way, and really stabilizing and drawing our power from our inspiration, from our spiritual inspiration, from compassion and love, and being inspired by a muse, rather than trying to utilize just our mind to maintain security at a resource level. This is what, Mercury in Virgo versus Mercury in Taurus, right? Mercury wants to be in Virgo because it's about mutable earth. It's about the actual process of doing something, putting things where they belong, details, meticulousness, hygiene, right? We've talked about Virgo and hygiene many times, astral hygiene. So it's okay. we have everything we need. So let's look at the guidance, because that's really where it's going to show us how to maybe give us some things to consider, right? Here's our Queen of Roses on the one side of the muse. You know, this is about loving relationship. This is about being a loving person and legitimately, genuinely being a loving person, right? The water of water. That's the other thing, is that she reflects. She's got no judgment. She is truly interested in giving her loving attention to that which is right in front of her and that is valuable to her. But it's truly love, and it's spirit in particular. So when you have this card, is these court cards, you know, this is a person that we want to either embody or find in our life or be inspired by, right? This is also, again, about inspiration. Let's look at that again real quick, right? If we look at the muse, there's, you know, she is somewhat disembodied. You only see, because we kind of, there's this conjuring of an image, right? You can almost see like the sphere around her as she's coming out of this vessel of presumably water. But then you have all these beautiful rose petals or flower petals that are just surrounding her in this. It's almost a silhouette. It's almost just an image, right? It's something that's, we conjure it, but it's more about we access it through our imagination by being willing to use our imagination, and then we become inspired. And so maybe there's someone in our life that is going to inspire us because they fit this role. Maybe we're going to be inspired to be more compassionate, be more loving. I mean, that's part of my morning meditation and prayer. Is I have a whole mantra that I do, and that a lot of that is one of the Reiki principles is being kind to everyone. And there's a difference between being kind and being nice, and very different. And being kind also means that you are not being deceptive and you are being truthful if asked. So this is, again, compassion, loving connection, and a person that exemplifies that in some way. And then we have the octopus, another very feminine. This is about flexibility. This is about camouflage. This is about, kind of, again, wearing our emotions on our sleeve, and reflecting our outside, reflecting what the inside is going through, which is what an octopus does. Its skin changes color in relation to what's going on in terms of its feelings, right? If it's feeling relaxed and happy, if it's feeling excited, if it's feeling threatened or stressed, all of these things. And maybe you want to wear your heart on your sleeve. Maybe you want to camouflage yourself. Maybe, just maybe, shape-shifting allows you to actually put yourself in other people's shoes and allow for compassion to grow in a way that had not grown before, because you had not allowed yourself to literally shift your shape into someone else's experience. This is very shamanic, and is also and very connected to Syrian starseeds. They seem to be able to access this somehow, at least in my experience. And I think a lot of it has to do with the ability to access energy healing and grids and stuff like that, because it's more of I don't want to say it's an illusion, but it's the ability to change what is being perceived from the outside that is really important. But it does reflect a change on the inside as well. And I think that we can really take this to heart. Again, octopus has 8 limbs, so the eightfold path comes to mind as well. The octave comes to mind as well. But also just being able to put yourself in someone else's position will certainly establish you as a person to be more loving. And I feel like this is way inspiring, and will allow us to access our inspiration and a sense of artistic beauty, right? And creative resourcefulness. That seems also very strong. So creative resourcefulness. Now, the camel is, like I said, it usually lets us know that we have a challenge coming and thirsting for comfort and solace, right? Just know that we have everything we need within us. And, prayer is a way of spiritual insourcing. And that is a friend of mine who I think she probably coined that phrase, who knows? But I like it. And this is what we, pray, right? Whatever you do, meditate, do whatever it is, whatever process it is that allows you to reconnect with yourself and your guides, your higher self, the avatar of compassion and love that you may have intended to, follow in the footsteps of at the new moon, whatever and whoever it is. That is something that is brought forward from within us, right? It's not going to come to us from some sort of outside source that's like, yeah, hey, look at that. I mean, when we are all feeling that, or a majority of us are feeling that and legitimately feeling that and knowing that and trusting that, then you're going to see it shift on the outside and things will align with that knowing. There are going to be challenges, but we are built to hold what we need within as we traverse the landscape that is very harsh. And I can see why the attention can be impacted in a way that in a way that would discourage us and to lead us to believe that we've been abandoned, right? Or that there is no, and that's what demons tell you, right? That there is no God, nobody's coming to save you. That is definitely, like, if you've ever had any kind of experience with those types of entities or in any way, I mean, that's what they say. That is basically what they try, because they lie, right? That's the alternate perspective here of everything, is that if you're going to have the light, you're going to have the dark, and they also are going to be the inversion of everything, including something like that. But we have everything that we need. We really do within us. Spiritual insourcing is going to be really important in terms to bring into our conscious awareness. And speaking of this, spiritual insourcing, the divine physician. Well, here we go. This is a pretty obvious set of symbols here, right? Here's the Jesus avatar, right? Here, or the Christ avatar. He's got the bucket with the well. By the way, Asteroid Ceres or Dwarf Planet Ceres, the goddess of the grain, the goddess of agriculture. Speaking of agriculture, speaking of cycles and the underworld, that's the degree in Gemini. Speaking of Gemini, that's also Ceres is in Gemini, which represents the bucket and the well. That moment where we have complete trust in and cooperation with natural world, right? You build the well and you know that the rain is going to fill it and water is life, right? So this is a moment of real trust and cooperation, fundamental cooperation with what is. And so I like the fact that that's part of this card. But, he's giving Reiki right to her heart, right to her heart. So, and the 10 of discs, I just have to mention, I know that it's upright, and for all intents and purposes, it is a very positive card of material security and wealth, and I know that we're feeling, a lot of people are already worried about it, but you also have to accept that it is the fruits of one's labor, regardless of the quality of it, right? And this is something that is way more relevant to where Mercury is in Pisces, because it's the farmer's market. Everybody's got to bring their fruits to bear in the court of public opinion, or into the into commerce as a function of togetherness, right? You bring, regardless of your crop, you bring it to the farmer's market and you see what happens. So just because this is the end of a cycle does not necessarily mean that there is not some rotten fruit in here, or there isn't some sort of issue, right? Or that we didn't want what came to bear, but in fact that is a result of the activity put into it. And remember, the Princess of Wands, for how beautiful and courageous and enthusiastic that she is, right? She is all lust and anima, right? There is no spiritual, in terms of feeling, depth at all, and there's really no thoughtfulness through any kind of mental energy. And so she burns it all down as quickly as she attracts it to her, right? And moves on. So whatever that is, it is culminated materially into the end of this cycle. And so that's something else to keep in mind too. Not everybody's going to be like, oh, this is okay, I have what I need. This is what the full moon is going to be a pretty big indicator of this for each of us, what this actually stands for and what has accumulated of our works or our labor. This is way more, the 6, number 1, is way more about the healing or stepping into the healing role that is much more connected to our feelings of connection, our feelings of being present, right? Add some, I am here. Maybe what we need to do is open some space up for our own healing, realize that what's happening and maybe the separation or the presumed separation that we feel from our higher self or from God, that is I think that a lot of people are feeling really worried that we've been abandoned and that there is no anything to look forward to other than a grim future. And I do feel this in this card, that this is the worry about that, and also the worry of losing everything that we have gathered so far. I do feel like that as well. But it's pretty clear here with the divine physician in the mix that there is healing that's happening. I mean, so much of this process for all of us is the healing that we're going through. And when that happens, it calibrates us energetically. It allows us to redistribute our resources appropriately in our own self, and then that starts to have an impact on the collective. And so we do have a challenging journey, and it can be in those moments where we really doubt that people are going to show up to the table. So if we feel the need to assimilate resources, mental resources in particular, right? Pisces and Gemini are mutable squares. We're going to see in the astrology chart. If you feel the need to assimilate some in the realm of ideas or in the realm of potential, or just the doubt that you have over, that you're feeling, the doubt in coming to any type of consolidation or decision or anything, you can utilize bring it forward through some sort of healing, right? For yourself, however that comes about. And maybe the one thing to remember with Virgo and the harvest is that there is a surrender of what we have borne or what we have labored to, to create in some way, right? This is the Virgo aspect, is about service. And so maybe we think that we're separated. Perhaps we are concerned that we have been left behind, or that we've been abandoned, or we just don't feel the connection. And I think that it's not going to end anytime soon. This is just that quarter square represents that crisis point that we're all feeling. And this is part of the process for the healing, I believe, and spiritual healing, like real deep karmic cleansing on so many levels right now. So whatever you can do to not even expedite it, to soothe yourself. You know, if you're hungry and you're like, I can't wait, or you're worried nobody's going to show up to the table, even though everything is there. Everything is there. It's ready to go. It's all about timing and trusting the timing. If you're having a hard time with that and you're feeling tempted, especially with Black Moon Lilith, because she's like, hey, without this separation, without the duality, without all of these potential ideas to have resistance with, there's nothing to reach out to. There's a yearning to get into a new position. Let's just look at the chart, because now that's where it's going. And so to sum up here is that the divine physician, allow this healing into your heart, allow yourself to receive healing, or to be in a position, if you're in a position like I am, for instance, and many of you are, to offer this type of healing, and, quite literally through Reiki healing, but just being present and compassionate with people and maybe putting yourself in other people's shoes. That really goes a long way. And I know the battle is very real, even if it's on the inside. We're still all battling with people that were like, really? You still don't see what I see? Like, you're not even trying to see what I see? It's very painful and it's very discouraging. And we have some challenging terrain to cross, but we're not alone. And in fact, it's the process of the challenge that I think is part of the healing process too. So let's look at the chart and kind of unpack that as well. Oh my, let's see here. And I'm gonna check in with the chat real quick and see what's going on. Good morning, fabulous Catalyst Energies. 740 on the left coast. Excellent. Flaming Lips. I haven't heard of them in ages, but I recall liking them. I think I recall some cool concert posters back in the day in Portland. Yeah, there's two stories I have about that. One is I saw Flaming Lips in a parking lot in Phoenix in like 2000. So yeah, like 1999, 2000, I think. And it was just outside some club, and it was in the back in their venue. Their outdoor venue was literally the parking lot behind this club in Phoenix. And they set up a stage and they did Flaming Lips. And at the very end of the show, they popped off all this confetti. And I had dreadlocks at the time. And I was pulling confetti out of my hair for months after that, months and months and months. But it was a good time seeing them live like that, you know, and it was, in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the other thing about Portland and Flaming Lips is that, if you remember the show Portlandia, there was one of the newer seasons at the very beginning, they had the Flaming Lips play like a concert as part of, you know, their episode, which was at the farm where they do Pickathon. And I've done that. I had done that a bunch of times. We'd gone there, and that was a great place. Pendarvis Farm. I don't know anybody that's from Portland or lives in Portland or in that general area that's ever been to Pickathon, or if you are familiar with it. It's incredible. It was an incredible music festival. So diverse, but so painfully Portlandia by the end of it. So I used to do massage backstage. That's how I would get my ticket. I was part of the backstage massage crew. So you would just do spot work for the performers, and anybody had backstage passes. So not very mellow environment in August on the farm right behind the stage, but you'd be surprised what kind of work got done in that type of environment. So anyway, Light on Change says, we even need to be kind and truthful to those who seem like the bad guys. Otherwise, they'll never learn. Exhausting, but necessary, I think. And I think that there's so few people that are truly 100% all in on their agenda to be committed to the material and to control and power, right? We all have it in our own ways, and that's the best way that we can really address things, is to just continue to address those areas within ourselves. But they express themselves so often in our relationships that it's a great way. It's a great type of yoga, right? Relationship yoga, to see yourself reflected back from your partner, your family members, your close friends, the people you work with, whatever. Even your own clients, if you're having a client relationship as a professional, it's often reflected back at you, and it gives you a chance again to work on yourself and to also be the same mirror for those people. But at the end of it, right, it all goes back to each of our own relationship to the universe or source or God. And so everybody's going to face their own life review. So we want people to quote unquote wake up, but it's an endless process. Like, all of us who think that we're awake, like, if you're honest with yourself, you realize that, there's such a huge vacuum of things that we don't know. Like, how could we possibly ever be awake while we're still in this form, other than those fleeting moments? But those fleeting moments can be cultivated over and over and over again in our relationships with each other, with the planet. This is all about the Pleiadian revival. So, you left Portland in 99 and went to Florida, but now you're back. Yeah, see, I went to Portland in 2003 and had stayed there until 2020. And the Portland in 2003 and the Portland you left was the place I wanted to be forever. And it was already on its way out by that point. So Eugene is probably no better at this point. So let's look at the chart. Oh, there it is. All right, so this is the chart for our first quarter moon, and with the sun in Pisces, like I said, Black Moon Lilith is right here. So she's in a retrograde. So these two are going to come together into a conjunction today as well. We also have a trine to Saturn while the moon is in Gemini as well. And a quincunx actually to Pluto as during this time. So, all right. Let's start from the beginning. Whoops. The table set for an evening meal. This is the Sabian symbol for the sun at 20 degrees Pisces. The idea here is that the soul returns back to the spiritual home, and it is shown as this table because it's an indication that in the end and at the appointed time, the individual's needs will be met among those to whom the individual is spiritually linked, okay? You find nourishment in the harvest. So think again about Mercury and Virgo. It is the material ending of the cycle. The harvest is finished and everything is stacked up. So if you've ever worked on a farm, if you've ever been responsible for a commercial harvest, then you know the process is the process is drawn out, right? You have to actually cut down everything. You have to collect it. You have to process it. You have to dry it, blah, 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 right? Now this is, but everything is stacked up and, ready to be offered into the social marketplace, whatever that is, at the end of Virgo. And there's power that comes from that, but it's a power that is within, based on the works that we've done within ourselves. So, but in Pisces, this is about finding nourishment in the harvest, right? Everything is set and ready for when it's time to sit down and eat, right? But this requires, again, a trust and a surrender to the plans or that have already been initiated well before we got to Pisces, right? It's already been set, and you could argue that that's the case for right now at at the largest spiritual level, the largest cosmic level. Like it's been set, right? Just like we talked about with Pluto, it has been scheduled for demolition from the very beginning, if it made it this far, which it did, the United States, I mean. So it's already set, and everybody that needs to sit at your table is going to sit at your table when it's all time for everybody to come sit at the table and find nourishment in the harvest, whatever that means, and returning to spiritual home. So the fellowship, the Starseed fellowship, that was a step in acknowledging this. And maybe it's not time yet. And in fact, with the moon and Gemini in this square, it is about assimilating a whole I would even say multi-dimensional knowledge, right? But, something more simple that is just having access to all this type of knowledge from all different type of cultures, different historical periods, all of the ways that we are able to take in information is allowing us to assimilate even more knowledge, right? And it's through the mind that is able to do this. Well, we're talking about the moon, so we're really feeling it rather than strictly processing it with the mind. So from the one, the many arise in due time, okay? Keep this in mind because this is exactly what the full moon is going to represent. So we're feeling the many arising, but it's in our own thoughts, in our own spirit, right? Remember the spirit that causes the turbulence, the wind that makes the ocean waves or the surface of the water choppy. This is that water. So this is that water as a result of the spirit. So we can find ourselves being satiated, right? It's just like going into a buffet and you're just like, I'm going to put them in this and some of this and this. And then you eat so much that you're like, oh, I'm so bloated and I have indigestion. But you don't want to waste anything because that is the real problem here is the waste and mental confusion that's caused by a lack of discrimination. right? Because we're really trying to wrap ourselves intuitively and feeling wise around concepts that require that we have dualistic nature. And the Orion aspect is completely woven into not only the moon in Gemini, but the sun. And actually, this is fixed star Bellatrix, right? And so if you look up the astrology of the fixed star of Bellatrix, you'll get some information about this particular star. But when it comes to Orion starseeds, I mean, you are, the Orion starseed is going to assimilate all of this knowledge through the power of their mind, their willpower, their self-discipline, their lack of emotional attachment to the process of gathering information and going through it, or observation. But if you're not able to truly assimilate everything, then yeah, you end up bogging yourself down. There's confusion, there's lack of discrimination. And this is where our first challenge is. And depending on where you find it in your natal chart is going to tell you the area of life that it's really expressing itself the most. And are we patient? Have we surrendered to the appointed time? Do we really, really actually trust and are fully in communion with the table that's already set, the plan that's already set, right? The effect based on the cause of our own actions is already set, and it's just a matter of living out the process. This is the fundamental crisis. So I'm sure it has expressed itself outwardly in a number of ways for people, as a quarter moon often will do, a personal crisis. But I think it's mostly at this point, it seems to me that people are struggling with it either in their their very personal relationships or their communications, but also the inner battle, right? Of like, I know that there are these two sides, and without these two sides, I don't have the opportunity to come together and merge, but there's still so much tension there, and it has a lot to do with people that you're like that are still so completely in a different reality than you that you can't even, how can you possibly trust that everything is going to come together? Well, it will, because that's the nature of time, and that's the nature of wave function, is that it will return, right? It'll return back. And so we can be in alignment and in flow with it, or and Gemini's mutable, right? That's the thing. This whole month, this lunar cycle is a mutable energy. And so there is a lot of shifting and changing and flexibility and being malleable and being willing to, not be contained by anything in particular. So that's actually something important for those of us who maybe need some flexibility or some space to move around. Now, other people, depending on your chart, you may not thrive or be very comfortable with this type of mutability. You need something more fixed, or you might be a cardinal sign, or you might be more of a fixed sign. And the fixed signs definitely last month was all about that, because of the Aquarian new moon, that's fixed air, and the grand square at the full moon with the nodes at Scorpio and Taurus. Those are fixed signs as well. So there is a lot more flexibility in terms of where we can land. And with Mercury in Pisces at the same time, guys, this is great in terms of our mutability. And Mercury does rule two mutable signs, Gemini and Virgo. Both of them are mutable. Venus doesn't do that. Venus rules a fixed earth and a cardinal air sign. So Mercury at least rules two mutable signs, and coming into a mutable sign about imagination, about inspiration, about fantasy, about dreaming, right? There's no limit to what we can think about and think up other than our own imagination. It's the only thing that limits us right now. So I think that's really the immutability could also lead people to just get lost at sea, really, or just get lost in the ether. That can happen too, right? Because you don't want to actually come to terms with what is, and so you just escape, right? You just emotionally escape into all of the potential realities without actually making a choice yourself in your own projection of your resonance, right? We all have to make a choice and be intentional. I mean, this is the responsibility of being awake, is you can't just go back to sleep and act on autopilot anymore. This is part of it, right? And the Starseeds made this contract a while ago. So remembering it is a big part of what we're here to do. But here we go. Let's move forward, shall we? Now, Venus and Mars are in an interesting position. They are, and then I'll get back to the moon and Saturn, because at the same time that the moon is squaring the sun, it's trine to Saturn. And I brought up this a lot in the last astrology forecast, this particular aspect. So while the moon is in a square to the sun, the moon is stabilized. We're emotionally stabilized by something way more limiting and powerful, which is Saturn. But in an Aquarius, again, it really depends on the authority of the collective as a whole and what it represents to you. But there is something, a dove of hope, right? Some sort of message, something that arrives to our sense of security and power that will stabilize what seems like turbulent emotional waters, to give us literally a dove of hope, right? Like knowing that there is something coming, or knowing or having some sort of certification of what we are doing from, an agent of the institutions or an agent of time in general. It just, whatever Saturn represents for you, right? It is the ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius. So it does have, much like Mercury, it has the dualistic nature of the masculine and feminine. So does Saturn, of Capricorn being a feminine sign, Aquarius being a masculine sign. And the same even with Venus, right? She even presents with Taurus and then Libra, which is an air sign that has a masculine quality. So more on the masculine kind of detached side of Aquarius, Saturn is still offering like some sort of message. So that was exact at this quarter moon hours ago. So even if it's just a knowing within ourselves, or a sense of power in whatever we see as the dove of hope from a collective sphere, right? The society in general is offering some sort of certification of everything we've done, right? And I would say that this has a lot to do with, the camel, right? That we have everything, just like Aquarius as the water bearer. A camel bears water. I mean, different containers, but the idea is that humanity has made their choice. They made their choice. We've made our choice a while ago, and more people are getting on board energetically. They might not even consciously know yet. And in fact, I would say, looking at this reading, that's probably the case, which is why it's really important that we stay anchored, so that, and a knowing of what we're here to do, so that we're not thrown off so easily. But there is something here to stabilize emotionally what is very turbulent. So Mercury, like I said, came into Pisces, and then Venus and Mars are in an interesting place. They're both in the whole degree, 3 to 4 degrees Aquarius. The Sabian symbol is a Hindu yogi demonstrating the healing powers. So these two are still traveling together, although Venus is going to start separating from Mars and going out scouting basically ahead of him. Doing in the collective, right? Because that's what Venus, she's like a magnet, but she also like pulls in what she needs, and she would make a really good spy. And in fact, I'm sure she does, right? That's what a honeypot is. So, but in this way, these two still traveling together in their whole degree is they have still a responsibility to use the spiritual energies they've cultivated with each other. And as a result of their attraction and consummation with each other at 0 degrees Aquarius, now to offer that energy, that spiritual energy towards healing. So there's our divine physician. Where does it come from? Well, it seems to be coming from the consummation or the bringing together of opposition of Venus and Mars, the seed and the soil coming together, and activating. And not only that, but also offering that. So this is like healing healing plants, if you want to think about it that way, right? But from a human perspective, it is the realization that when you come to a spiritual evolutionary moment here and you've really honed those, I wouldn't, hone those energies. It's your responsibility to really offer it as healing. So this is a way that you can feel connected, possibly, is to just be available for that, right? And that comes in a lot of different forms. That doesn't have to be through a specific modality in a professional sense. Just being present with people. You can have an activating effect on somebody at the grocery store that you're in line next to. In fact, that's a big part of the Avatar Galactic Starseed signature, these 12 to 13 degree and 13 degree in particular position, which is serious, right? So there's a responsibility, but also they still have this incredible generative and catalytic power between them that is we can actually put to good use, right, in some sort of healing capacity. So they're still traveling together during this time. And the moon's going to, speaking of Aquarius, Vesta is also going to come into Aquarius today. And so that is bringing the hearth flame, the eternal flame of community, society, family, the flame that holds us all together of spiritual transformation and metamorphosis, right? The flame that never goes out, which is Vesta, coming into Aquarius, right? And now she even is going to represent that which holds all of us together. This is interesting. I'm really curious to see how Vesta, is able to show herself through Aquarius. This is very new, and I haven't got a strong read on it yet. And so I could give you these, make the connections symbolically and archetypally between Vesta and Aquarius, but I'm going to see how it unfolds, like energetically, because I'm especially with Venus and Mars kind of heading up the pack, so to speak, and coming out in front. And so they are activating and coming together in this generative type of relationship. And maybe it's the generative relationship that then is symbolized in the hearth fire, because it is the fire and the friction that is represented ultimately as the eternal flame. And you can identify that in terms of a attractive type of experience, right, between the feminine and the masculine. So the idea is they attract, but it's also possible that it repels all the way back into meeting. That's another way to look at magnetism. I never really thought about that until recently. And I think that may actually be more accurate than an attraction. But that's something that, again, that's for the fellowship. Those are the types of things we talk about in that space. So in the meantime, the moon is going to meet Black Moon Lilith today, and then is going to quincunx Pluto at the end of the day. So the connection between Lilith and the moon is, and is also going to, sorry about that, it's going to square Neptune. So speaking of these more mutable squares, the moon in Gemini squaring Neptune in Pisces today as well. And I think that there's a sense that we still want to kind of protect ourselves. And it's not so much that we want to protect ourselves, but this idea of like a new consciousness, this yearning to come into a new phase of consciousness is very strong in Gemini. And I think we might try to keep ourselves, at least in our mental, this is going to be very difficult with Mercury in Pisces now. But there is a connection with the moon in Gemini, with Mercury in Pisces as well, that they can at least understand each other, even if their goals or their ends are at cross purposes, which is what a square is. There's a conflict here. While Neptune is making it virtually impossible not to be consumed by the fog of war, the fog of, the entire the karmic story, or to substantiate our conscious ideals by giving all of our vital energy over, right? The thing about Neptune is that everything is your vital energy when Neptune is in Pisces. So we're giving of ourselves, either unconsciously or consciously, to something, to substantiate something. But I think we're all still struggling a little bit within our own fields of like, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. I'm trying to still figure out how I feel about these things. I am the turbulence. The only way to get out of the turbulence is to like find a place high in the tree in order for these, spiritually creative processes to grow safely. And it's very difficult when you are drowning in the ocean. Okay. And the square is just going to bring that out even more. But remember, the moon is our internal water. So it's just a matter of perspective shifting that allows us to, be malleable and flexible and to face the conflict of the square, which is what, the moon square Neptune represents. Now, the moon is going to meet Lilith right after this. Let's look at that in the afternoon-ish. Yep, here we go. And then right after that will quincunx Pluto. So these two meeting each other is like, we have a direct connection to our original blueprint, original sacred feminine, and a direct channel to an aspect of ourselves that is deeper than we even know, something that connects us to a long, ancient history of where we've come from, and will be heard, right? Demands to be heard, demands to be seen, acknowledged, because Lilith is in fact the original mitochondrial DNA. And so whatever that represents for us emotionally and psychologically and even spiritually, the moon meeting Lilith, it's like a direct channel. And the moon is in its waxing phase now, so it is getting nothing but brighter. So this is actually a way for us to tap into much more of the essential archetype of dialectic nature. We don't want to necessarily give up on that idea, but realize what it's for, and that the acquisition of knowledge and the understanding of, or the knowing of separation as a result of our consciousness, becoming aware that we are separate from the objective world, is just it's just the beginning of the story. And a lot of people get trapped here too, right? They get trapped in the realm of ideas. They get trapped in the knowing and knowledge for the sake of knowledge, and these and what we can do with that knowledge, right? The mercurial hermetics, right, of manifestation and illumination. That also is part of the Gemini archetype, and this is where you get caught into Luciferianism, right? These are they're different things, and this is just my own opinion, my own professional opinion, based on my own research, my clients, my own intuition, right, my own gathering of my understanding. But this is where we get trapped. Anyway, so when in that perspective, when you get trapped and you can't actually come to a decision, which is the moon in Cancer, by the way, but there's something very important about the essential nature of the dialectic, that we're going to get a really strong channel of raw energy or raw power coming out of ourselves. Either we're going to feel it, we might find ourselves emotionally expressing it in some way. And it's bringing things down to their essential archetypal, an essential rhythm of existence, and what that's for, right? We have to acknowledge that we still feel, and we are in material form, separate from that which is outside of us in the subjective, objective, dual nature. And if we take all of the, strip it all down to its very essential facts, I think this will get us in touch with the essential rhythm of archetypal existence and what that means for us, and reveal it to us, because that's going to be very important as the moon comes into Cancer and we start to feel a real sense of belonging and a real sense of where our root system emotionally truly is. The moon coming into a quincunx with Pluto right after this, right? Pluto has moved into the 28th to 29th Capricorn, okay? Pluto moves very slow, so when it moves degrees, it's noticeable in its resonance, and it's, the aviary, right? The walls of the cave, so to speak, or the way that the societal institutions provide a structure and safety and security, but in a way that allows for a myriad of voices, a myriad of spiritual perspectives to all move freely, but still within the framework of this institution, which Pluto has been, is destroying, and will move back over that point 2 more times this year. But now it's in a degree of the hidden secrets and meanings of the fractal itself are no longer going to be hidden. Pluto is going to unearth a lot of what normally can only be divined through some sort of divination process. And now I'm not saying that literally, but reading the tea leaves, reading the writing on the wall, reading the energies of the collective in terms of the institutions, reading the energy of the fractal geometry of our reality. All of these things are about reading the hidden signature that's embedded in every pattern you see. It will not be hidden for much longer. Pluto will make sure of that and will unearth this. And remember, we'll come back over this point in a retrograde when it does go retrograde. So this quincunx with the moon in relation to Pluto now is, yes, it will require, and this is pretty late tonight. We're looking at, roughly 10:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be unearthed, and this is the beginning of that process, right? We won't even have to read the tea leaves or figure out what's going on. It's going to be, the structure will not be hidden anymore. We will all see the skeleton of the entire institution and its institutional framework. We won't have to necessarily use any kind of clairvoyant ability in order to see it as a result of Pluto. So in that moment when the moon is in quincunx with Pluto at the end of today, it will be very uncomfortable because we want to exteriorize our own talent to weave together all of the threads of our experience into some sort of song, right? And not just ours, but collective material, and to transform it by weaving it together into some sort of unique signature that we each express, okay? We're going to want to exteriorize this. This is how we're going to feel about it. There's a capacity that we all have. There might be even a creative exuberance, to do this because we want to offer what we have and transform things as a result of our virtuosity in this realm. It's just that Pluto, being Pluto, is going to be starting to reveal so much of what is hidden, while we each are just no, we can just weave it all together and create something totally new. And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't do that, but remember, the moon is very transitory, and these are fleeting moments of feeling. And it's going to be from here that the moon makes its, ingress into Cancer, which is the home territory of the moon. And that 0 degrees of Cancer is the 4th house cusp. It's the nadir. It is the planting of the flag and a point of no return, because it is where the roots start to grow and stabilize the plant to the world, in the material medium that it's growing, which is the soil, right? And so we will be making some decisions, or we will be emotionally aware of those types of planting of a flag. And do we want to continue to weave together the collective material that we are seeing unearthed right in front of our eyes and exteriorize it? Maybe some people will. It's going to be a process that challenges us personally versus what is going on at an institutional level with this quincunx. But it's not, it's not a challenge or a conflict. It's just an adjustment. So, the collective material that we want to transform, that we want to weave together into a unique kind of experience or song, We can feel into that. We can exteriorize this as a gift. But keep in mind that that's not going to feel like it fits with this really deep unearthing at a collective, societal, generational level of Pluto. It can make you feel small. It can make you feel like you don't have an impact. And again, this is where Adsum comes in its reversal of like, we really are just alone. I don't have any impact on any of this, which is not true. And I think that it's in our ability to access, receive, and give this healing energy, whatever it is, that is really connected to this new moon, honestly, that comes through compassion and unconditional love. This is going to be our impact as we traverse some very challenging and desolate territory, as far as I can tell, right? So the, Tower card, that has not left my awareness, by the way. That was earlier this week, right? It was Tuesday. It has not left my awareness. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so, so much. Let's see. I'm going to look at the... Hit the like button. Let's help Dee get more YouTube action. Yeah, that would be great. I never miss out on hitting the like button. Thank you. You guys are great. I mean, it's really just helping all of us. I completely agree, Dee. Drowning in an ocean, up in the trees, trying to find balance and support others. It's so much. I totally agree. And especially when the people right in front of you are just like, that's not happening. And you're just like horrified that that you're up in the crow's nest going, hey, there is this huge, tsunami coming, or hey, the dumpster fire is going on under us and I'm trying to find a safe place for us to go. And people are like, there's no dumpster fire. You are paranoid. And I'm like, wow. It's hard, guys. It's hard, which is why I make myself available as much as possible, because we're all learning from each other. We're all finding connection, and it's getting stronger. It really, really is. So I love you guys. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you are interested in a reading, you're interested in energy work to support your process, if you're just interested in being part of the Starseed Fellowship or getting on my email list, you can find everything you need in the description box below. Take care of yourselves today. Just know that we passed a point. There's a marker that we passed, and there's challenges leading up to this full moon. We're going to see what we're really made of. We really are emotionally when we come to this full moon. And I'm not suggesting that something massive will happen then. It's just going to show us very clearly that and very brightly the full emotional responsibility of the initiation that we started with the new moon, right? Whatever avatar we have aligned with ourselves with, and whatever symbolic meaning that we've decided to follow into battle, if you want to think about it that way, we're going to see how that affects us emotionally at its fullest, most illuminated state. So the forecast will be coming out before that, of course, for monthly subscribers. And in the meantime, have a great day, guys. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow for our astrology report on Friday. Take care of yourselves. Peace out. Bye.